This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. All right, guys, here we are. It's Dominion season. You've heard us talk about it a lot here recently, maybe seen it on social media or in your email inbox. But our 6-month intensive discipleship program, the application portal is open. So we're taking applications right now, and we're reviewing those because we have a limited number of interview slots for early December. And then we got a limited number of slots for teams 6 and beyond. And so I've been bringing you guys some feedback from some guys from team 4 and team 5. And I've got another one on the show today. So we've got Chad Fryar out there in Arkansas, and I think if you listen closely, you'll be able to hear Arkansas in the background. I hear birds chirping. I hear crickets clinking. How you doing, man?
Man, I am doing well. Just out here in my office that God blesses me to work in every day.
Now, it is quite the office. Now, if you guys are watching this, if you're not watching this, you're missing out because it looks like I'm talking to Yosemite Sam because, Chad, you are a legitimate real-world cowboy. Is that right? Let's get your age, your exact location, and what you do for a living.
Yes, sir. Name's Chad Fryar, 39 years old. I live in Malvern, Arkansas, and I have the privilege of tending to some cattle for the company that I work for. And on top of that, I get to pastor the cowboy church as well. So cowboy to the core as best as I can do it.
Well, and I just got to tell you, I got to give you my favorite Chad Fryar story. So we're doing our Dominion meetup, and so I'm sitting there with my buddy Dwayne. We're about to do a whiskey tasting and cigar pairing and all that, and you guys weren't there yet, so I'm just sitting there hanging out with Dwayne. And so I didn't want you to be the only guy there without with a cowboy hat on, and so I had mine there, sitting there on the table. It's the one that Kyle Lucas got for me and presented me here in the studio. And so I see all you guys coming around the corner, so I just real quick, I grabbed the hat and I tossed it on my head. And at that point, we had already done lunch together. That morning, we had done jujitsu. And, none of you guys had any jujitsu experience. And you come up to me, you put your arm around me, you go, "Hey, Kyle, you know how this morning, how you kind of showed me how much I didn't know about jujitsu, and you tried to do it without embarrassing me? Kyle, your cowboy hat's on backwards." And I was like, no, that's like the first thing Kyle told me to do is don't ever put it on backwards. So just to prove to you that I am capable of putting it on correctly. Chad, there we go. Are we good to go?
Nailed it.
So it's like the one time I put it on backwards is the one time I'm there with like a bona fide cowboy. So anyway, that was a fun story. So I just needed to throw myself under the bus a little bit. Is that okay, Chad?
Yes, sir. We all have to do that.
We got to do it from time to time. But hey, as we continue on into this, I'm just curious, how did you find Undaunted.Life? How did you find our material and what made you keep being a fan and keep listening?
Well, so before 2023 in August, I had a flip phone, so I wasn't in tune to like podcasts and that sort of stuff. And my family suffered a tragedy, and so kind of in order for my wife and I to be able to keep tabs on each other without having to be in constant communication, I got an iPhone. And some of my buddies started sending me some podcasts, and I didn't even really know what podcasts were, other than the Unashamed podcast that I tried to catch up on and keep listening to. And through one of them sending me some stuff, I really connected with the words that you were saying and the application of them in our lives. And, sometimes knowingly and sometimes unknowingly, looking for a place and a way for a man to be a real man and a godly man at the same time has been a challenge in our society. And really connected with the material that you put out is why I really started dialing in and diving in deeper.
Well, and I'm curious, Chad, and you can get into this as much or avoid as much as you want to, but the tragedy you and your family suffered, it obviously changes the way you view the world, the way you view being a father and a husband, the way you view being a man, the way you view being, a cowboy, like an employee, and really the way you approach everything. Because, coming into the Dominion program, you got a bunch of different guys from a bunch of different backgrounds and points of view, but all of that has an impact on the men. And very early on in the Dominion program, you kind of shared with everybody what you were going through. And I think it changed the seriousness of the program for a lot of guys, because it's like, oh, shoot, like this is a guy that's, gone through it and is still going through it. And yet here he is trying to get better and pouring into the lives of other like-minded men around the country.
Yeah, man, I'll share an abbreviated version of our story. So like we were talking about earlier, I have the opportunity and the privilege of cowboy for a living. I tell everybody I put in 12 years of hard time in the public education system, and finally got out of the classroom. And there's a big story behind that with God inspiration and leading and putting all the pieces in play. But on May the 25th of 2023, I was coming to work at the farm where I'm sitting right now. And I had my three children with me. Marta Jo was my oldest, Dana Kate was my middle child, and Bo Henry was my youngest son. And we had been working in the hayfield all day, and we went to get some lunch. And on the way back, at a train crossing, we were hit by a freight train. And to make a long story short, when I woke up in the hospital, I found out that my oldest two daughters did not make it. They're waiting on me in heaven. And then my focus immediately went to my son. And he had broke his neck and his arm and his leg and his hip and just all kinds of stuff. And, it was one of those things that, as I've told y'all and shared with you guys, when I was sitting there in that emergency room in the hospital, my lead pastor come in and he asked me what I needed. And I said, I need a Bible and I need it fast. Because in that moment, as I've shared with you and the guys, I can continue the fight or I can turn to the dark side, and either one would be an easy and, in a lot of people's eyes, an honorable choice. But I didn't feel like I had a choice, and I had to push forward. And that was on a Thursday. My very best friend that does my music for me at church filled in for me on that Sunday and the following Sunday. And when I got out of the hospital and got back to home, I missed 2 Sunday services, and I don't think I even realized it when I went back to preach my first sermon was on Father's Day. And so that's one of the things is the things of this world really don't matter to me. Everything has an eternal purpose. And I know that when I get there, it's going to be a big party. My girls are going to come love on me, and I can't wait for that day. But as long as I'm here, I've got a purpose and I've got a mission, and I want to be able to fulfill that mission as a godly man to the best of my ability.
Well, Chad, I appreciate you saying that and, sharing that with this audience because, that's not the only tragedy that you suffered. And even recently there's been other stuff that's gone down. And I told you this when we talked on the phone, a few weeks ago. It's like you're under attack because you're effective and because you've got a purpose. And you brought that level of seriousness into the Dominion program, but I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit. So just to go back, when you heard about the Dominion program, probably on the show or through my email inbox or something like that, what was it about the program that made you interested enough to even put in an application? Because I'm purposely kind of vague about what the program is because you can't really understand it until the interview process. Because I don't put out, I don't advertise all my dirty laundry, all the stuff that's entailed in the program because I want guys to buy in to the concept before we start talking about what it takes to actually be a part of it. But what was it about what we said about the program to where you're like, yeah, I at least need to put in an application for this thing?
Well, as a pastor, it is my job to push back darkness as well. And I've always had a good group of friends, but I didn't cultivate in them efficiently in order to make sure that they were able to stand with me if and when I needed it. And not only for myself to be able to build that mental, spiritual, and physical resilience, but to take what I learned in the program, if I was to be accepted, to be able to build my people, and use that to better them, as well as to be able to father my son better. Because as dads, we want to do the best that we can, but if we don't sometimes invest in ourselves and our capabilities, we can't pass that on to our sons.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing when you're coming into something like this. You don't want to bottle up all the things that you're learning and developing. You want to be able to transfer those skills. So there's certain things that you can't transfer. Like I can't work out for my sons, right? Like I can't, run and lift weights and all that and then transfer the strength or the cardiovascular improvements to my boys. However, I can transfer to them the idea and the thoughts that, hey, what I'm doing is what you should be doing. Like I'm taking care of the one body that God gave me and I'm trying to become physically resilient so they can take away the lesson, even though they're going to be the ones that are going to have to do it for themselves. And so for you, you put in the application, you do the interview, you're extended an offer to join. And so that's decision time because, like we've talked about, this is a significant investment of your time, of your effort, and then also of your capital. Like we're not trying to make just some weekend course or some online thing or just some app based thing that's, $20, $30, and you just don't ever think about it ever again. We want this to be with you. So I guess what made you jump at the opportunity to go ahead and say, yeah, I'm going to be a part of one of these Dominion teams?
Well, before I even had the call, when I was given the opportunity for the interview, my wife and I had already discussed it. And when I tell you that I way outkicked my coverage with my wife, I most definitely did. And we had already decided that at and during the call, if I felt like God was telling me that it was the right time and the right program to be investing in, to to go ahead and say yes. We'd already pre-decided that it was going to be up to my discernment during that call, and man, just being given the opportunity to connect with other men, not necessarily at a local level, but in the body of Christ, to be able to do these things in different areas in our country, that's something that I really took a lot of initiative in and happy to be a part of.
Well, and Chad, you've really grabbed the bull by the horns, and that's not a cowboy reference. That's just a thing, right? That people say, even though they've never even met a bull. But from your perspective, what if the last? Because we're rounding to a close of your team, and then we'll be moving on to Watchman, which is the alumni program. So Dominion kind of gets you ready for the alumni program, kind of a thing. But what have you seen in yourself, or what have other people noticed about you in terms of the changes that you've made from the Chad Fryar from 6 months ago to where you are now?
Well, my wife, I try to love her better because that's what we're called to do as men. And she has seen the change and has been more vocal about telling me the things that she's seen and that she does appreciate. And my men's group at church, man, we've been able to dive deep and to create warriors for God. And I've got guys speaking every week that have never spoke before in a group setting. Mostly because of my unapologetic call out to them that we're to be men and be leaders and not just be partakers.
And so what has it been from the material that we've gone on that has kind of allowed for that to change? For some of these guys, because the drill. There are guys that will go through the same type of content and make no tangible changes. But from the beginning, it seemed like you were just ready to do that. So what was it about the content or the group meetings or the interactions with your teammates to where you're like, nah, I'm not just going to take these as good ideas. I'm going to actually put them into practice immediately.
Well, like you said, it is a significant input of time and capital and effort. And as a cowboy, I don't necessarily make a whole lot of money, but I've never been without because God takes care of me. But I believe that we're to be good stewards of what He's blessed us with, and having this opportunity, it would be unbecoming of me to squander it and just to take it lightly. And the concepts that we have in the different tiers that we go over, is this over this. And a lot of times the thing that we would default to is the opposite of what we need to. And kind of being able to see it on paper and to be able to put it into perspective in real life and have that application is something that I've definitely enjoyed during the program. Now, it's not always easy, but it's worth it because it's biblical. And if we're going to be Christians and claim to believe in Jesus, then, every word in the Bible is true and we should live that way.
Amen to that. Well, hey, you're talking to a lot of guys right now. There are some guys that have already put in their applications, depending upon when they're listening to this. Maybe they've already done their interview. And then you got a bunch of dudes that are on the fence. They're on the fence about putting in an application. Maybe they've done the interview, they've been extended an offer to join a team, and they're just on the fence. Maybe their wives, they're not quite like, Mrs. Fryar. They're not quite, as gung-ho about just letting you be the leader and to be the head and just to discern and make the call. What would you say to the men or to their wives that are on the fence right now that aren't sure if Dominion is the right thing for them and whether or not they should jump?
As men, we've got to be men. And in my industry, we handle and deal with barbed wire fences more than commercial fences like most people would see. And if you're straddling the fence, you're in a tight spot. And you've either got to get in or get out. And if you get in and choose to do so, go full bore, go completely. Don't hold back and allow yourself the opportunity to grow.
My man. All right, Chad, that's all for me. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
Man, I love you. I appreciate you. And I look forward to what God's got for us.
Man, I love you too, brother. Again, guys, it is Undaunted.Life/Dominion, Undaunted.Life/Dominion. Get in your applications. We only have a limited number of interview slots and way fewer slots on future teams. Chad, we'll talk again soon.
Yes, sir.